Imagine with me, you get a phone call today requesting that you speak to 75 of your ideal patients tomorrow. What would you say? Would you be excited? Would you be joyful? Would you be fearful of the results? Would you be confident in your results? I hope that you would say yes to all of this. Using speaking to grow your practice is a wonderful and powerful skill to possess, and it can always be improved. I know from my own personal experience that speaking has been everything. As a young child, having a speech impediment and overcoming that, I've learned that the power to talk and to be able to convey your message is critical. And I have always sought to be better, which is why I have hired as my personal speaking coach the best of the best speaking coaches that has ever existed, Joel Weldon. Joel Weldon has given over 3,000 paid talks. He has coached and critiqued well over 10,000 of the most affluent and influential speakers in the world. And he has created the ultimate speaking system, which is an online skill system with one-on-one coaching. So, man, that's a resume. When I looked at all of these things and I thought, man, how long will this possibly take? The thought came to me. I thought, Joel, how old are you? Joel has been around a long time. He has the experience and the success and the knowledge to back up what he brings to the table. He has been inducted as one of the top Hall of Fame speakers in the world. He coaches the best, and that's why we only have the best for you. And why I brought Joel on today, you guys, with the Chiropractor's Edge, is one of the things I see commonly in our practices. I've seen it in my practice. As I coach and I talk to you guys and as you critique your own practice, one of the problems that I see is we share the message of chiropractic to thousands and thousands and thousands of people a year. We share it every single day. But what I find is you put your agenda first to share chiropractic, which is our job. It's our endeavor. It's what we were born to do. We have a sacred obligation to do, a moral obligation to do. But the problem I find is you do not tailor that message to the person in front of you. Joel, do you see this often in your career when you're coaching people like myself? Do you find people that aren't tailoring the message to their audience?
Well, yes, Jake, that's a great question. And as you join this podcast, you must have some kind of an interest in using speaking to grow your chiropractic practice. And you've been doing it since you're 2 or 3 years of age. Speaking is a learned skill. You know how to speak. But as Jake mentioned in the beginning, so often we don't make what we're saying relevant to the people we're talking to. And in speaking or in sales, they call it a can talk, that you say the same thing over and over every time. No matter who comes into your practice, if you're showing them around your office, you pretty much say the same thing every time. So there's so much of a better way to do it. And maybe this illustration would be helpful. Now, obviously, since the only one I can get a direct answer from right now is Jake, but make believe you're answering these questions. So Jake mentioned that you get a phone call and you're going to talk to 75 people, your ideal potential patients, and you're going to talk about your chiropractic practice. But let's change that. Let's just say that the phone call comes in and you're asked to talk to 75 people tomorrow about being a safe driver. Now, I know as a chiropractor, you are a safe driver, because you see the effects of accidents all the time. So now here's the question Jake is going to answer for you. So Jake, are you ready to be our podcast listener?
Yeah, you got it, Joel.
All right. So tell me, if our subject is going to be safe driving, okay, what are some of the things not to do to make sure we're safe drivers? Let me hear your list. I'm going to write them down.
All right.
Tell me, don't what?
Don't text and drive.
Don't text. Okay.
Don't tailgate.
Don't tailgate. Okay.
Don't not use your blinker.
Okay. Signal when you change lanes. Okay.
Yeah, signal when you change lanes.
Okay.
Do we talk about, I was going to say,
that's okay.
Watch your speed.
Don't speed. Okay.
Yeah, don't speed.
Now, as you're listening, you would probably add a couple of other things, but give me one more. Don't text, don't tailgate, signal when you change lanes, don't speed.
We talked about do we say don't tailgate? Do we say that one already?
Yes, you got don't tailgate, don't text. How about drinking? Is that, because we hear a lot about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, don't be distracted when you drive. Don't eat when you drive.
Don't drink or eat. Okay. Yeah. All right. So can you imagine, as you're listening, Jake is a great communicator, and this is his subject. He's going to talk to these 75 people about safe driving. And you know what's going to happen? They're going to laugh him out of the room. They're going to get up and leave. Because, see, Jake did not ask the very first question you always need to ask before you make any kind of presentation. So, Jake, here's the first question you should have asked me. Joel, I like the idea that 75 people are going to be in that room tomorrow talking about safe driving. Who are they? So, Jake, ask me, who's the audience?
So who's my audience, Joel?
These are NASCAR drivers. You see, NASCAR's been having all these accidents on the track. They heard, as a chiropractor, you know a lot about safe driving, and they want you to come in. So can you imagine? Jake is standing in front of 75 NASCAR drivers telling them, now, guys and gals, don't text, don't tailgate. Can you imagine how big that one's going to go over in the NASCAR race? Signal before you change lanes. And whatever you do, don't speed. And eat and drink while you're driving. All right, Jake, is there anything relevant about what you just told me you were going to talk about?
Not 1 ounce.
Not 1 ounce. And that's what you need to think of. In that dramatic illustration, you need to tailor everything you're talking about to the person you're talking to.
Absolutely.
So if you're talking, and hopefully you're spreading the message of chiropractic and going out into the public and going to service calls and giving talks wherever you can to different organizations. So one of the things you need to always know is who is in the audience. And you can do that from a program chairman and ask, but then you want to do it on site. And whether you're virtual or live, a question like this: how many of you have ever been to a chiropractor? I mean, just that one question alone. And then whenever you ask an audience a question, always give the answer. So just imagine it's a live event. Okay, raise your hand if you've ever been to a chiropractor. Okay, that looks like about 47 of you. So I always make up a number. If we have 100 people in a room, that looked like a little less than half. So I'll just say 47. Why do you want to give a number? Because it proves that you listened or you're paying attention.
Yeah.
Okay. So another thing to think of if you're doing it virtually, just type in the chat box, yes or no. Have you ever been to a chiropractor? And then, Jake, give me a summary, because I'm going to keep going. And somebody else should be looking at the chat box, not you. All right. So that's one way to find out about your audience. But the key is to make your message about them. So that's what Jake and I were talking about before you arrived, to make sure that I understood who you are. You're a chiropractor. You love helping people. You love serving people. You're good at your profession. You're well trained. But the most important thing, and from my years of experience with chiropractors, you really care about people. And unfortunately, some people who care so much don't run it like a business. And I know that's why you're involved with Chiropractors Edge. It is a business. You need to be compensated for the good that you provide, or you can't keep doing it. So, Jake, does that kind of answer the question about customizing with our little NASCAR example? I'm sorry you failed the test completely.
It really does, because you guys, we see this consistently, that you have a message you want to share and you make it about your agenda and you don't make it about them. You don't make it relevant to them or the people they care most about. So you need to always tailor your message. That's why when you look at your paperwork, always look at those details and figure out who is the person in front of you. Could you imagine the whole NASCAR thing? But you guys, that is happening. That sounds absurd, but that is happening every day in our practices when you do not tailor a message. I want you to think NASCAR the second that next person sits in front of you. So, Joel, you brought up a really good point. I'd like to ask you another question, if that's okay.
Sure. Yes, it's your show. You can ask.
You brought up a good point. A lot of chiropractors, we really, in our profession, we tend to attract doctors who just have a servant's heart. They really are big givers, but we're horrible salesmen. Every doctor wants to increase their bottom line. That's the biggest question we get. How can I get more patients? How can I sell more effectively? So I would love to ask you that question. What is your definition of selling, Joel?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, it's real simple. From an experience level, and I've been around a long time. Listen, my social security number is 5. I mean, I can remember, Jake, I remember when Baskins and Robbins had just one flavor. So, this goes way back. Burger King was just a prince. So based on that experience, here's my simple definition for you as a chiropractor. Selling is helping. That's it. Selling is helping. That if you have a product or service that is good and that helps people, if they don't get it, it can't help them. So once you make a sale, once you convert a first-time visitor to your practice or somebody you meet at a meeting and you get them into your office and you turn them into a patient, you have helped them. If they don't, you can't help them unless you have them as a patient. So Think about that. Selling is helping. It's not about you. It's not about the money, but money is important. It is a business. And money is a direct proportion to the service you're rendering. The greater your service, the greater your rewards. And that's how it should be. So that would be my answer, Jake, to that one.
That is such a critical point, you guys, is that a lot of times, and I remembered in my first part of my career, I gave chiropractic away for free. We were seeing 800 to 1,000 people and a week for free. Wow. I was making an impact, but we were starving for it. And so people like Joel have come into my life that have helped me realize that in order to feed my family, you can sell chiropractic. And I have no problems with this. And when you can do this effectively, you will change people's lives. You have within you the power to change people's lives. So you need to say selling is helping. You will not have the effect of changing their life if you don't put them under care. That is absolutely 100% critical. Joel, as a professional speaker, and I know that you critique the best of the very best. You actually offered something before as we were talking, and some of my mentors, Steve Sims is one of them. You have a laundry list of some of the most affluential and influential speakers in the world. You've offered something to the Chiropractor's Edge that I would love to share. So you've offered the ability to communicate with you, to talk, to say, hey, would you be a good fit? Hey, are you a good speaker, or could you become an even better speaker? Can you tailor your message? How do we get a hold of you? How could we introduce you to, and again, I want to get this down right now. So people, I want you to write this down. But how do we get a hold of you, Joel?
Well, it's very difficult. Just go to talktojoel.com. And you can get on my calendar. So anybody on this podcast of the Chiropractor's Edge, you can set up a half-hour conversation if you're serious about taking your speaking to the next level, or have questions about how this can apply to you and what we can do to help you. We have lots of tools that are available, simple, practical things that you can use right away. And it's all custom tailored, just like we're talking about your presentation. And if you think about that, just go to talktojoel.com and pick out a half hour that's convenient for you. And then in the subject, just tell them I was on Chiropractor's Edge and I'm doing some educational seminars. I don't really know if they're any good. Can you help me? Or whatever it is you want. So that would be it, Jake.
You are such a generous soul. Thank you so much. So you help solve people's problems by allowing every conversation I've ever heard you had, every talk I've heard you give, you are a master at tailoring it to the person in front of you. You are a master at that. So again, we have a lot of chiropractors who feel very strongly that the message is what is most important. And again, we talked about this just briefly. A lot of docs believe that the message is more important, that the agenda is more important than the person in front of them. How would you, in order to be able to speak effectively on a message that is canned? So we've talked about tailoring to the person in front of us, understanding who that person is, but how can we as chiropractors, how can we speak? How can we share the message of chiropractic more powerfully? And I think you've shared this perfectly, is that stories sell and facts tell. Can you talk about how sharing and being able to get people to share their personal stories and how powerful this is in a practice?
Yes, well, that's certainly very true. And you mentioned, all of these presentations I've given over these decades of being a Hall of Fame speaker. I've never given the same presentation twice, ever. Over 3,000. Now, that doesn't mean I haven't used the same stories, statistics, analogies, metaphors before, but it's always customized to the audience. So the greatest amount of my time in preparation was finding out about the audience and three qualities. And this is what you need to think about. If you're going to talk to somebody, what are their needs? What do they need to know about what you're going to talk about? Second word, fears. Now, fears means worries, concerns, or keeps them up at night. I've never been to a chiropractor. I hear they break your bones and jump on your back. And I'm really, if I went, would I get hurt? Or
you're not far off.
Say that again, Jake.
You're not far off. But we have people with that legitimate fear.
Yes.
Every day because they had a bad experience before, they've watched too much YouTube, or they've just heard horror stories. You're not far off from that.
So you need to know that, and you need to think of the exact words that people use to describe some of those fears or worries or concerns. So it's needs, fears, and then victories. So victories are the positive things that are working in your favor and their favor. So as an example, if they came into your practice to talk to you, they're open, they're perceptive, they have a need, they're willing to take that first step. Or if they call you and talk to you on the phone, there's a sign of receptivity. So that would be what we'd call a positive or a victory. And if you could understand the needs, the fears, and the victories of the people you talk to one-on-one or in front of a group, then everything you say will be relevant. And if we go back to that opening illustration about the NASCAR drivers, nothing Jake said he was going to talk about applied to his audience. He was talking to NASCAR drivers. Don't tell them don't speed and signal before you change lanes. It's not relevant. So how do you know? You ask questions and you listen, which is so important. And then I've seen this with so many chiropractors, they don't follow up their questions. Have you ever been to a chiropractor before? Yes, I have. Okay, well, good. No. When was that? Why did you go to them? What was your experience? Those are the kind of answers that will give you the information so that you can tailor your comments to them. And then the other part of what Jake said in the beginning was, and how do you make this relevant to them? So I made a little prop for you. I hope you can see this if you're looking. I'm not sure you can read this. But that is the key word, is make it all about them, not about you. And when you tell a story, make it about them, not you. But what if it's your personal story? How do you do that? How do you take your experience and not make it all about you? Now, that sounds counterintuitive. How can I tell about me and make it about them? Well, how about I give them an example of a story that has nothing to do with chiropractic, except it has to do with how to make substantial improvements in your life. Would that be helpful?
That would be very helpful. And for you guys that are listening, Joel held up a ginormous sign that says "you," a ginormous, unmistakable sign, because so many times we dilute our message and we confuse our message. And the audience hearing that message, it has to be about you. So yeah, Joel, please. Let's, I would love to hear this because you are a master storyteller. I feel like I am literally right there with you, sitting with you when you share these stories. Please share.
Well, you haven't heard this story. So,
okay.
So you can be our real audience on this. So here's a suggestion. As a chiropractor, when you start a story, always open with the point of a story. How many times have you heard somebody tell a story and you're sitting there thinking, what does this have to do with me? What's the story about? Oh, when they get already now, I wish I was listening. So open with the story's point. So here's the point of the story. How do you make substantial improvements in your life instantly without willpower or self-discipline? Is that possible? Yes. When you have an epiphany, and an epiphany is a sudden realization of something, and it can change your life. And I know as you're listening, you have had an epiphany. You have had something that happened in your life that moved you in a different career, that got you into chiropractic, that got you into a relationship with your spouse, or whatever it was, maybe with one of your children. So that's the point of this story. So come back as my invisible partner. You and I are going to go back in time to March 16th, 1981, Miami Beach, Florida, Fontainebleau Hotel. And you're watching me on stage in front of the IBM Corporation's Field Engineering Division, and I'm doing a seminar. And you're sitting there watching this. The seminar ends, and then you go back up to my room. We're heading to the airport, and you see me go in the bathroom, and I tell you, I got to take a hot bath and sit for about 20 minutes to get my energy back because I was pooped. So, okay, Jake, since you're one person, you're going to watch. You're not going to come in the bathroom, but you're going to watch outside. You see me go in the bath, and I bring a big bar of semi-sweet chocolate and a big bottle of Pepsi, which is what I always drank, and the semi-sweet chocolate. So about a half hour later, I come out of that bathroom, I get dressed, and you and I are going to head to the airport. So now, as a podcast listener, we go to the airport. We get on this American Airlines flight, Miami to Dallas, Dallas to Phoenix. I live in Scottsdale, Arizona. And since you're invisible, you can come in first class with me. I'm assigned seat 1A, and you're going to be with me. And because you're invisible, nobody sees you. And you sit down with me in the seat, and there's a guy sitting next to us. We don't say anything to him. Now, in 1981, and that you might not have even been born in 1981, they had smoking on all commercial jets. And in first class on American, there were 3 rows, row 1 through 3. Row 3 was smoking, 1 and 2 were non-smoking, and row 1 always had the bulkhead in front of the seats. And on that particular day, either the ventilation wasn't working well, but the smoke was filling the cabin. And the flight attendant had told me to put the tray table down. She was serving dinner, and she puts this beautiful plate of food in front of me. And the smoke is kind of bouncing off that wall right in my face. Oh. Now, Jake, just picture this. You're there, and I'm not looking at you, and I'm not looking at the guy next to me. And I'm coughing, and I say, boy, this smoke is really terrible. Sort of leaning to my right. He's sitting in 1B, and I'm in 1A. And in this tone, and I want you to listen to my tone carefully, he says these words, not as bad as the crap you're about to eat. Now, since you're the only live person I can talk to, Jake, if somebody said that to you on an airplane, you got your food in front of you, and he says, not as bad as that crap you're about to eat, what would you have said to him?
I mean, definitely taken back. Taken back for sure. That's
what I was. Nobody had ever said, and I've got 3 million miles on American alone. And I didn't know what to say. I mean, I was almost speechless. I said, what do you mean? And he says in this tone exactly, do you really want to know? I said, yeah.
Yeah.
He said, okay, do you like rolls? And he points to the roll on the tray. He leans over, grabs the roll with his left hand, squeezes it right in front of me, holds it up, crushed in his hand. He said, this is made with white flour. Rats don't even eat white flour. It's crap. And he throws it on the floor. And I'm sitting there like this. My mouth is open. Then he grabs it. You put butter on your roll. You don't need it. There's chemicals in here. Threw it on the floor. You got a salad dressing in that little pot over there? This cup? Chemicals. No salad dressing. Crap. Threw it on the floor. You drink that Pepsi? And that's all I had. A big glass of Pepsi. He said, you got Pepsi in there? I heard you order that. You drink that? It's filled with sugar. Might as well drink poison. It's crap. I said, don't throw that on the floor. He said, no, I'm going to leave that there. And then he said, you like steak? And they had put a big steak in front of me and a big piece of chocolate layer cake for dessert, all on the tray. Now, as you're listening to this, you would think, this is insane. Now, today, with all these crazy things on COVID and people arguing on the plane, now he wasn't yelling, but it was definitely that tone of voice. And then he says, what's your name? I said, Joel Weldon. He said, I'm Alvin Cassuto. He said, can I continue telling you what you're doing to yourself? I said, well, yeah. He said, I'm older than you. How old are you? I said, I was 40 years old. He said, you look tired. Well, I am tired. What do you do? I said, I'm a professional speaker. He said, you're a professional speaker and you get tired. What did you do today? I said, well, I gave a seminar today. How long did you speak? I said, 2 hours. He said, you spoke for 2 hours and you're tired? And you're 40 years old? How do you get tired for 2 hours? He said, put your hand on my stomach. Now, remember, this is a different time than we're in today. I said, what? He said, don't worry, I'm okay. Put your hand on my stomach. It was like a steel plate. He said, I'm in magnificent physical condition. I'm a lot older than you. But, I used to be like you. I ate crap. And it's your mother's fault. Now he's talking about my mother. I said, now you're listening to this too. As a podcast listener, you're an invisible partner in this. Your mouth is open. You've never heard anything like this. I've never heard anything. Jake never heard anything like this. I said, my mother, what does she have to do with it? She wanted you to be a big, strong boy growing up. And she gave you meat because you get protein. He said, Joel, what's the biggest, strongest animal you could think of? I said, I don't know, an elephant. He said, you ever seen an elephant eat a steak? I said, no. He said, you don't need protein coming from your meat. You can get it in other ways. I said, what do you eat, Alvin? He said, I eat chicken, fish, vegetables, and fruit, and I only drink water. And I'm in magnificent physical condition. I'm going to go play tennis, and I'm 54 years old. I'm going to play tennis with kids under half my age. I'm going to run them off the court. They can't keep up with me. I'm in magnificent physical condition because I don't eat that stuff. And what about that piece of cake? Oh, I said, I love chocolate cake. He said, that's filled with sugar. You might as well eat poison. Well, if you're going to catch your breath, that's how I felt. I mean, it was like, wow. I didn't know what to do. I had all this food. He told me I'm eating crap. And he said, why don't you do this? Why don't you do a test? When you get back home, why don't you just drink water, get rid of all the sweets, eat chicken and fish, salads, fruits, and vegetables, and just see how you feel. Do it for a month. Do it for a week. You'll see quickly. Well, I got home and I told my wife, Judy. Now, Judy and I married 58 years. She was 15 and I was 17. We grew up together. She knew everything about me. She knew how much I loved sweets, cookies, and candy, ice cream. I wasn't overweight. I was so active, but I was tired after being active. I can tell you now, 41 years later, I don't get tired. And I feel in better shape now than I was that day on the airplane. Because at that point, I decided to do what he said. Within 2 days, Jake, my energy just soared. I just felt so much more energy and felt so much better. And I said to Judy, that's it. I'm only going to drink water, never going to have anything sweet, no candy, cookie, ice cream, cake, dessert, nothing. Fruits and vegetables, that's it. And in 41 years, as God is my witness, not once have I thought of even tasting any of those things that I gave up on March 16th, 1981, thanks to Alvin Cassuto. I got his business card, and every year on the anniversary of that March 16th, I wrote him a thank you note. And this occurred for over 10 years. And then the 11th year came back. It was undeliverable. I don't know if he moved or what. So I never heard from him again. But I told him how grateful I was that he sold me on the idea. Remember, selling is helping. If he hadn't delivered that presentation so specifically to me, it probably wouldn't have made an impact. If he was as nice as Jake is and just said, sir, you might consider not eating some of that stuff, especially drinking Pepsi all day long, and maybe don't eat the sweets. Oh, okay, thanks. Wouldn't have made a difference. But the way he did it was so effective. Now, as you heard that story, was that about me or was that about you? How can you make those changes? And here's the key point. When you think about that, you might be saying, oh, well, Joel, you just have very good self-discipline, or you have tremendous willpower. Well, I am self-disciplined, and so are you, but that's not the why. Here's why that worked. At that moment, based on that story that unfolded from him, I saw that what I was eating was not right, especially after that first 2 days of testing it. And then it's like 2 + 2 is 4. So, Jake, let me talk to you. Do you remember a time in your life when you didn't know that 2 + 2 was 4? When you were like 2 or 3 years old and you were just learning about numbers? Is it possible, if we could go back in time, that at one point in your early life when you were learning about numbers, that you might have thought that 2 + 2 was 6 or 3 or 5? You weren't really sure. Do you think that's possible?
Absolutely.
You weren't born knowing it's 2 + 2 is 4, right?
Right.
So at some point in your life, you saw that 2 + 2 was 4. Maybe it was a teacher, maybe it was an older sibling, maybe it was a parent. And at that moment, you had an epiphany that 2 + 2 is 4. 2 apples, 2 oranges, I got 4. It's always 4. So now as an adult, let me ask you this question. You say I'm a great storyteller. Could I persuade you that 2 + 2 is not 4?
No.
Could I bribe you to think it wasn't 4 and really believe it?
No.
No, you know it. Now, let me ask you this question. How much time did you spend today reinforcing that 2 + 2 is 4 so you wouldn't be tempted to think it was 5?
0.
As a matter of fact, if we could go back to your early math days, I don't think you ever spent a moment trying to force yourself to not let go of the 4, because once you saw it, you had it. And it does not take willpower or discipline to maintain unshakable faith that 2 + 2 is 4. Whether it's Thursday or Wednesday, whether it's night or day, whether it's in this country or another country, it's always 4. And you know that, and there's no effort to use that to your benefit. And that's what can happen with anything in your life. If you want to stop drinking or smoking or lose weight or be kinder to the people you're with or to become a better salesperson or to become an even better speaker and communicator, you can do it if you see the truth and accept it. So hopefully this story shows you how you can make immediate improvements in your life and never go back on it. And I think, Jake, because I know you don't smoke, but you know people who did smoke. Most people have stopped now, but I stopped 20 times. People, I stopped 30 times. Or, I've tried, I've lost 20 pounds. I gained 20. I lost 20. I keep gaining and losing weight. What that tells you is they never saw 4. They think it's 4. Well, sometimes it's 5. I mean, 2 + 2 can be 5 some days. They don't have it. But do you know people who stopped instantly, who were smokers for 20 years, 2 packs a day, and something happened? A child came home from school and said, "Mommy, stop smoking." Why? Because I don't want you to die. I heard that smokers are going to die. The mother's heart almost stopped. She said, "I'm done." Goes in the bathroom, throws the cigarettes away, and never smoked another day in her life. Why? Because at that moment she saw this was not good. And until you get to that point, you're going to need willpower and discipline. But when you see what's true, and that's what I think is so great about, Jake, what you're doing in helping these chiropractors in their practice, that when they see there's a way to be of great service and help people and heal those broken bodies with their chiropractic skills and get financially rewarded for it, they get it. And they're not going away thinking, I'm just going to keep giving away my services because people can't afford it because they can't pay with insurance. No. He who has his health has a million wishes. He who does not have his health has only one. And you hold the key to that one wish is to heal that body. And when that's done, it's an amazing gift you have.
That is such a powerful concept. We just had a conversation the other day with a gentleman who's 47 years old. He's a billionaire and retired.
Wow.
And he's very famous. He's a patient of ours that comes to see us. And so through the HIPAA, I can't share his name, but he's an incredible guy. And he's very famous for saying, he used to say, "I'll sleep when I'm dead. I'll sleep when I'm dead." Well, this is the guy that literally would go weeks without sleep. And he would just work, work, work. And he's like, I had the drive. You'd watch the stuff like, wow, this guy's really, maybe he's built for that. Well, he's got heart problems, brain problems. He's got joint problems galore. He didn't eat right. He never, obviously he didn't get his sleep. He never regenerated. So his cells were horrible. And he shared that thought. And to see, and we were able to have an aha moment for him just recently of that exact thing. He who is healthy has 1,000 wishes. He who is not has but one. And that is his wish. He said, I would give away my billions just to be healthy. I wish I'd had that decision. I wish I had someone like you who could have shared that with me. And you guys, within your hands and within your lips, you have the power to share a message. Within your hands, you have the power to change life and to direct that life for absolute power and good and optimal potential. But if you can't get them in your practice through effective communication, if you can't sell them to help them on communicate and with communicating your message, you won't have that aha moment. I felt like I was there with you, Joel, on that plane. I could smell the smoke. I could hear the roll crumbling. Like I was there with you. You guys.
How is that possible? Because as you're listening, remember what I said to you and to Jake. Come as my invisible partner.
That's right.
And you're sitting right there and you see that smoke. And it wasn't, I was there and the smoke was bad and I did this. Yes, there were some eyes in there because it was a personal story. But the goal of telling a story, whether it's your personal story or about one of your patients that you help, is to put your listener in the story. It's like going to a movie and watching it on the screen or feeling that you're actually in the movie, experiencing what that movie is showing. And that's why Steven Spielberg has been considered one of the greatest directors, because he has a way to get the audience to be part of that movie and to experience Private Ryan or any of the other wonderful movies that he made and to be part of it. And that's what you can do with your message, is put them in there. And then you just said, I felt like I was there. I felt like you could see Alvin squeezing that roll. It wasn't me seeing it. It was you seeing it. And that gratitude for him to make that kind of a presentation to a complete stranger was not only life-changing for me, but so many people have been impacted by that story because they gradually started to see they needed to be seeing fours. And if you just think about that with your math skills, there is no effort. There is no stress. There is no tension. You know what the basic math table is. And once you know it, you don't ever have to think about it again. You can use it. It's part of you and it's effortless. What if you ran your practice that way? That you effortlessly showed them the facility the right way, that you effortlessly helped them understand the value and the value you're giving for the money you're going to charge them. And that's what can happen.
You know, the chiropractic profession is an incredible profession. We have a technique and a skill set that is not taught or learned anywhere else. But what you just shared is critical. You guys, please, I implore you guys, please take Joel up and communicate with Joel, even if it's just to be a better chiropractor in your practice. But I know several of you are struggling in practice, and I can promise you that it is not lack of new patients, it's communicating that message. Joel just shared a message that changed his life over the past 41 years, and you can do that every single day. So many people say cannot. Joel, I have a gift from Joel on my desk at my practice. I don't know if you happen to have one close by, Joel.
Oh, yes. I always have it right here.
So Success, you guys, comes in cans, not in cannots. And when Joel gave that to me as a gift and we were in Arizona, and my only concern was I said, this has to get through security. And I knew
we need to tell them what's in the can.
Yeah.
And it says it contains commitment and courage, truth, goals, imagination, creativity, honesty, preparation, knowledge, focused thinking, defined values, a sense of humor, and a positive I can attitude. Over 500,000 people, Jake, have this can, which has been my business card since 1974 when I started my speaking career. So I'm glad that that's on your desk as a reminder of what you can do.
Absolutely.
And hopefully this podcast will open that up. The Chiropractic Edge is all about you being exposed to ideas that can help you be an even better you and give you ideas that you can use instantly. Make it about your audience. Make it about that patient. Remember the NASCAR drivers. Don't tell them, don't tailgate and speed, because you're not going to make any connection with them. And then when you tell a story, see if you can put the listener in the story. How would you feel if that was you? If that experience happened, what would you have done next? Well, let me share what I did next. Or how would you have felt if that happened to you and there was no recourse? What would you do? And that gets them thinking, well, what would I do if I was in that, as opposed to just hearing something and watching it from afar? The power of bringing them into your message, because it's all about them. That's your whole practice. It's for your patients. It's not about you. You know this already, but they don't. Jake, you've got such a great approach to this, and so proud that you're offering all these skills to such wonderful people.
You know, that's very kind of you, Joe. We were asked for years as we started to get and get connected to the big ideas. We connected ourselves to mentors and systems and tools. And I'll never forget the day that after many, many years, 16 years of marriage, we took our first vacation. We took the kids to Disney and Universal Studios, and we had a ball. We had a blast. And I got asked consistently, Doc, how'd you do it? How did your practice do? Did your practice suffer? Like, oh no, my practice grew. And we've trained our team on how to communicate, not only with each other is critical. How we talk behind the scenes is critical, but how we communicate effectively. Our words have power. And you shared, I don't know if you'd be willing to share this with us, but you have 22 words that really impacted me and that I have written down in my phone that goes off on my phone twice a day. Believe it or not. Would you be willing to share those words with the Chiropractor's Edge?
No, absolutely not. Of course.
Dang it. Sorry, guys. One-time deal.
Who can say no to Jake? With somebody with that. Here's what you think of. Whenever you do anything, explain what it is. So these 22 words represent, if I was to summarize everything it's taken, almost 5 decades to learn about how to effectively communicate your ideas from your mind to the mind of your listener. Here are these 22 words. Speak to your audience about what they need in an organized way they can follow, and get yourself out of the way. That's it. Get yourself out of the way. And then you'll make it a great day every day.